Welcome back to Eye on Politics. Now to 2026 and one of the big races we'll be following next year, the governor's race. Democrat Andrew White is running against Governor Greg Abbott. He ran back in 2018 but lost to Dallas County Sheriff Lupe Valdez in the primary runoff. White calls himself an independent Democrat as he takes on Abbott, who is seeking a fourth term and may have $100 million in his campaign account.
Well, I'm the same person I was in 2017, but back in 2017, the party was a little bit different. We were talking about identity politics, and, I didn't quite fit the mold. And now I'm the same person today as I was back then, but I think the party's ready for me because Democrats want a candidate who can win in November, and I'm the right candidate for that.
Now, you call yourself an independent Democrat. What exactly does that mean, and how does that guide your positions?
Sure. An independent Democrat is someone who will work with anybody to make progress on the important issues facing our state. So that means I'm willing to work with obviously progressives and moderates from my own party, but also invite independents into the party and work with reasonable Republicans on these complicated issues that are facing us today. So our schools, for instance, our schools are in the bottom half of the nation. We're Texas. We should be in the top 10 in the nation. And so how are we going to do that? Well, we're not going to do it by tweeting against each other on social media. We're not going to do that by, running the moderates out of our party, which is what Greg Abbott did recently when he primaried so many moderates in his own party so he could pass the private school voucher bill. So the only way we're going to make real progress is if we do it together. And I've got 30 years as an entrepreneur. My skill set is to bring people together. I'm a team builder.
Why do you think you are the best Democrat in this race? Others may get in as well. And you said before that your goal is to bring together progressives and moderates and independents. How will you do that?
Sure. We as a party haven't run a businessman against Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott's a 30-year politician, and he's been running against other politicians. And you guys know that you got to do something different if you want to expect different results. And so I'm an entrepreneur. Greg doesn't want to run against me because I can, I have the skill set and the experience. I've started 4 companies and exited 4 companies over 30 years. I have a reputation for being a tough competitor, but a fair dealer at the same time.
If you are to win the primary and go on to the general election, you'll be asking Texas voters to fire Governor Abbott. And the state, as you know, at least from a business standpoint, is doing very well right now. It's on a roll as far as employment, as far as new jobs, companies, et cetera. So why should Texans fire Governor Abbott in your mind?
Jack, I think you missed it. Yeah, there's a lot going on for Texas right now. Our land, our people, our food, for sure. But there's so much more that we could be doing, right? So our schools are in the bottom half. We've talked about that. To attract the additional businesses and jobs that we want to attract, you have to have schools in the top 10 or at least in the top half, right? We've lost 20 hospitals in Texas. They've closed up. They've gone bankrupt, directly because of the decisions that Greg Abbott made when he refused to expand Medicaid, right? Thousands of jobs were lost because of Greg Abbott's decision. And he did that solely because it was called Obamacare. Only 9 other governors made that decision. It's a horrible decision. It's cost lives and it's cost jobs. And then, on infrastructure, we have, obviously a huge need for infrastructure in our state. My son was in the 4th of July flood. He was a counselor in one of the worst hit cabins. We got woken up with the same text messages that a lot of parents got woken up with that morning, and we didn't know what was going on. So we rushed down to Hunt, Texas, and we found out that, thank God he was alive. And we're really proud of him and his 3 other co-counselors who did such a good job as a counselor with their little boys. But we shouldn't have to live in a world like that. Greg Abbott's really good at showing up after the tragedy happens, but not so good at preparing us before the tragedy happens. And so as governor, that's the approach I want to take. And frankly, that's why I think we should fire Greg Abbott. It's time for a new culture and a new way of doing things.
Coming up, how President Trump's plan to lower the cost of prescription drugs may work when Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas comes right back.